as a lot of you are probably aware, before he died, Ralph Renee sent me various videotapes that he had one way or another played a part of, tapes from various lectures that he did, or interviews on the television, or news reports, or whatever. He also sent me various other space documentaries, such as his copy of the documentary Moonshot. This is the video adaptation of Deke Slayton and Al Shepard's book of the same title. It's on VHS, NTSC format, and it clearly shows the spacecraft window as it fills with flames, and it also shows a shot of the spacecraft gantry by night as the fire billows from the top of the spacecraft. Mark Gray, of course, denies that any footage of the Apollo 1 fire exists. So now we're going to put this videotape on, and well, you be the judge. You be the judge. Is this Apollo 1 footage? Let's find out.
Nobody knew it then, but a spark had jumped out. It landed and sat there, in the pure oxygen. At 15 pounds pressure, it glowed, brighter and brighter.
3, 2, 1, mark. CMTS 121. You're cleared for launch.
And then it went, like a blowtorch. I called for medics and raced over to the pad. The radio was dead, but I still hadn't given up on the crew. In their suits, I figured maybe they still had a chance. The pad guys were burning their hands trying to get the damn hatch off, choking in toxic smoke. Almost as fast as it started, the fire was out.
No question, Apollo 1 was an inside job, conspired and covered up by NASA and North American Aviation. And with the release of their DVD, spacecraft films can be added as a third party involved in this massive cover-up, as they continue to actively suppress the release of Apollo video material to the public. Even though it is clear that Gus Grissom was highly critical of the Apollo program, throughout the history books, too numerous to count, he is often quoted as saying, "If we die, we want people to accept it. We are in a risky business, and we hope that if anything happens to us, it will not delay the program. The conquest of space is worth the risk of life." This quote has been echoed and amplified in books, newspapers, magazines, websites, video. It was even dramatized in the HBO series From the Earth to the Moon.
If we could somehow reach beyond the wall of death and talk to Grissom, White, and Chaffee, what do you imagine they would say about the fire?
I was hoping someone would ask that. I don't know what Roger or Ed would say, but I can let Gus speak for himself. Back in January, he talked to a group of reporters. They asked him about the dangers involved with going to the moon.
To us, it will not delay the program. The conquest of space is worth the risk of life.
Needless to say, this statement certainly seems contradictory, given Grissom's dissatisfaction of the Apollo project. If Grissom felt Apollo was worth the risk of life, why would he constantly complain about it and go as far as hanging a lemon on the craft? To explore this, I comprehensively searched all historic books that used this quote, and also searched Google. Very few people who use the quote even list a source, and when they do list a source, the said source material gives no time as to when the quotation was made. Finally, I managed to track it down just before the completion of this documentary. At long last, it all became clear. Whether intentional or accidental, the quote has been taken out of context throughout the generations. He made that statement not in January 1967, as we are led to believe in the miniseries From the Earth to the Moon, but in March 1965, shortly after his Gemini 3 mission. Grissom was answering a question in regard to upcoming Gemini flights. At the time, Grissom wasn't even selected for Apollo back then. His Apollo 1 selection would come the following year. By delay the program, he meant the Gemini program, not the Apollo program. The Gemini missions are considered by many to be the stepping stones for Apollo, and essentially the shuttle missions that followed, because they trained astronauts for such procedures as spacewalking, rendezvous, and docking. These procedures, although considered standard by today, were by all means essential for manned spaceflight. Basically, what the generations of historians and journalists have done, whether intentional or unknowingly, is taken a quotation that Grissom made regarding his stunts on the Gemini program and attributed it to his stunts on the Apollo program. Now try telling that to all the propagandists who use this quotation to dispute Grissom's skepticism of the Apollo program and imply that he was immensely enthusiastic about Apollo and prepared to die for it. On top of all their disinformation about the Apollo 1 fire, propagandists beg the question.
If they're going to kill Gus Grissom and Chaffee and White as well, are they going to do it in the most publicly humiliating way that they possibly could, which almost destroyed the Apollo program and made NASA look really, really bad?
2 years later, they were on the moon.
Would they have thrown a toaster in his mouth?
Shocking.
What these propagandists do not reveal is what Michael Collins himself had to say about the very fire that supposedly delayed his moon landing mission.
Saturn V problems, LM problems, ground tracking and computing problems. Everywhere one looked, people were struggling to catch up. I don't think the fire delayed the first lunar landing one day, because it took until mid-1969 to get all the problems solved in areas completely unrelated to the fire.
Interestingly, this statement from Collins was originally noticed by Ralph Renee. Unsurprisingly, the individuals who make the claim that Apollo 1 delayed the program not only claim to have read Renee's book, but worse, they also claim to have read Collins's book. Yet their websites make no mention of this contradictory statement from him.
I don't think the fire delayed the first lunar landing one day, because it took until mid-1969 to get all the problems solved in areas completely unrelated to the fire.